Welcome to Toy Talk.
Hey everybody, it's October here on Toy Talk, and with October, of course, comes Halloween. Now, to be honest with you, Halloween is one of these holidays where I have some kind of mixed feelings, mixed emotions. Like, on the one hand, you've got all the costumes and the dressing up, and I love cosplay. My family has always been into this. For years, we'd go to Comic-Cons, we've dressed as the cast of Gravity Falls, we've done the whole Batman universe where we were actually Batman Beyond, old Bruce Wayne, Catwoman, Harley Quinn, all these different characters. One year for Halloween, we went as the Big Bad Wolf with Little Red Riding Hood, Granny, and the Three Little Pigs. And so it's something we've always enjoyed and had fun with, so I love dressing up. However, on the other side with Halloween, there's often that association with darkness, with horror, with horror films and the blood and guts things. And to be honest with you, for me, that stuff's kind of always bothered me. I'm not a big fan of horror films, and if you are, hey, go and enjoy them. I'm not saying anything against them. I'm just saying when I watch them, I mean, the stuff kind of, I see the people's heads getting cut off and stuff, and it makes me kind of squirm. I'm real squeamish when it comes to that kind of thing. And unfortunately, for whatever reason, Halloween has become associated with that over the years. So I want to go ahead and take a little look at the history of Halloween. This really kind of all started out with a Christian kind of Catholic holiday called All-Hallow-Tide. And every year from November 1st to November 3rd, they would take these days to celebrate the saints and the faithful that had died over the past year, and they would take that time to honor them. Well, society in time decided they need some kind of a balance for this, and they were starting to look for something else. So they went as far back as the Celtics. And what had gone on in history is on October 31st, the Celtics had taken that as the beginning of the dark quarter of the year, they would call it. Now, what they meant by the dark quarter is it was just the time of year where the sun wasn't as bright. It was the winter months, the darker months. But throughout history, somehow people started translating that darker months into spiritual darkness. They started celebrating something called Samhain, and they started associating this night with like spirits and darkness and ghosts and goblins. And actually, a lot of people came to believe that spirits rose from the dead on October 31st. And that's where jack-o'-lanterns came from. They were originally turnips, not pumpkins, and they would cut scary faces and put little like candles inside of the faces in hopes that that would scare off the evil spirits, And of course, nobody believes that today. And, we're not, anyone out there thinks that evil spirits are like coming out and haunting us on Halloween night. But there is still that association with the darkness, with the spiritual darkness. And like I said, I don't like that horror aspect. But I always am the type of person that likes to try to find something positive in any situation. And along with the costumes, two things that I find very positive about Halloween are the sense of community and giving. Now, looking at the sense of community, historically, if you go back, the 40s, 50s, you watch old sitcoms, different things like that, you talk to grandparents, neighbors were very close. They often knew each other very well. They'd come over for dinner, they'd play bridge, whatever it was, have game nights. If you needed a cup of sugar, you went over and borrowed it from your neighbor. But nowadays, things have kind of changed. We don't generally know as many people in our community, our neighbors, not necessarily the person living directly next door, but even the person directly next door, sometimes we don't even know their name. And we drive into our garages and we just kind of keep to our own selves outside of social media a lot of the time. Of course, not always, but very often. But on Halloween, people get out in the community. You see people that you may not have ever seen before. You meet people that you may not have ever met before. One of the things I love that they do right here in Ipswich, in our hometown, is every year the fire department has a big party. They open up the fire department, the firehouse, and they have cake and candy, and people come in and they socialize, they talk, they laugh, they have a great time. And that's just, it's incredible. It's a great sense of community. Beyond that, like I said, people used to go to the neighbors to get a cup of sugar. When was the last time you just randomly knocked on a neighbor's door when it wasn't Halloween? But on Halloween, this happens all the time. The kids, we take our kids, they go up, they knock on their doors looking for a treat. And people have gone out, this is where the giving aspect comes in. People have gone out and spent their own money just to get treats, candy, or whatever it is, to give to these children. And they don't expect anything in return other than maybe a smile and a thank you, if that. And you know, we don't see that often. How often do you really just go out and buy things just to give to somebody else if it's not like Christmas or if it's not a birthday or something? But on Halloween, we do this for total strangers. And when we get that smile as we hand a kid a piece of candy, I see smiles come across the adults' faces. And now, one thing I will definitely say on Halloween, I want you all to take a look this October 31st as you're walking around, whatever it is you're doing, and I can almost guarantee you that you will see more smiles on people's faces on Halloween night than on any other night of the year. And to me, that is a very positive thing. We're going to cut to message, and we'll be right back after these messages.
In a Weeble's haunted house, Weebles wobble all about, and it's a real exciting place to be. A smiling ghost with glowing face has a secret hiding place, and that's not all, there's plenty more to see. Cause a Weeble's haunted house is a great place to be. Weeble's haunted house, including glow-in-the-dark Weeble ghost from Romper Room.
Well, welcome back. Now, with everything I just said a few minutes ago, it's probably easy to figure out that this month's Toy of the Week is kind of difficult for me because I don't really have any spooky or creepy toys, but I did find something that I think will work.
We now interrupt this regularly scheduled program for a special live report.
I'm on scene at the home of this month's guest, Jillian Shamberger. And as you can see, there's some pretty cool stuff. Let's take a look at a few of the things out here before I take you to what I really want you to see. Now over here we've got Robin Lord Taylor, who plays the Penguin on Gotham. Picture of Tim Curry sitting in his wheelchair nowadays, man. Over here we've got, just some random dolls. We got Pee-wee, King of Pop, Michael Jackson, a few other dolls, but behind this curtain, you might think you're about to see a normal room, but this is the stuff that nightmares are made of. Follow me in. I'm going to take us around the room just taking a look at a few of the things. Obviously we've got some Walking Dead, some cool figures over here, Sweeney Todd posters, some old turn-of-the-century dolls. These things are incredibly cool. We'll see a few of these later on with Jillian on the show as well. Moving right along, there's just so much to see. Other old dolls, we've got Hellraiser. Down here we've got Chucky from the Child's Play movies. Over here we have got two shelves and a bottom row of Living Dead dolls. These things are super creepy and super popular. I think it's really cool. This is some custom-made dolls made by Jillian and her boyfriend Jason Negron. They custom-made these all on their own. Up here we've got some demon dolls, which are also, I believe these were custom-made as well. Now, one of the pieces that I love, it's a piece I want for my collection one of these days, My Pet Monster, one of the best toys of the 80s in my opinion, 80s to early 90s. Got Boglins, which we'll see later on the show. And I want to finish out on this piece right here. Signed by Barry Bostwick from Rocky Horror Picture Show. It's a pair of underwear that don't say "Damn it, Janet," but since they're signed to Jillian, they're "Damn it, Jilly, I love you." And we're going to move on. And in a few seconds after these messages, we'll be back with our guest, Jillian Shamberger.
Come a little closer, madam. I want to tell you about something your children will love. Monster vitamins. They're fun. They're screaming Mimi. Babbly back. Monstermobile. Monsters taste terrific too, Mother. Your children should get vitamins by eating right, but when they don't, Mother, Monsters and Monsters plus iron sure help. My children love them. Right, kids?
Right!
1984 was a year that gave us quite a fright. The Terminator thrilled, Gremlins chilled, and A Nightmare on Elm Street made us afraid to turn out the lights. While all this was happening on the big screen, a new breed of aliens were invading the small screen, introducing us to a new animated series that would lead to one of the most popular toy lines of all time. Already well known in Japan as Microman and Dioclone, this toy line's transition to American soil was an instant success, giving us a toy line that has lasted over 30 years to date and taught us that there's definitely more than meets the eye. Launching galactic warriors such as Bumblebee, Wheeljack, and Optimus Prime to mega stardom. Of course, this toy line is Transformers.
There's something strange in the neighborhood.
So who you gonna call? Ghostbusters! Each sold separately.
Have no fear. Venkman, Stamps, and Spangler are here. So are these ghosts. They've got ectoplasm. We've been gooped. Now what? Stay Puft Marshmallow Man. Let's show this pile of dessert who's boss. Activate Neutrona Blaster. We ain't afraid of no ghosts.
Peter Venkman, Ectoplasm, Stay Puft Marshmallow Man, and other figures each sold separately. Ghostbusters, new from Kenner.
All right, now welcome back, everybody. And from her home to our studio, let's welcome the creepy doll lady herself, Jillian Shamberger. Hey, Jillian.
Hi.
How you doing?
Thanks for having me.
Good. Yeah, I'm glad to have you here. Even beyond the dolls and the Halloween stuff, I gotta say, I'm excited to have a female guest again. I haven't had a woman as a solo guest since the first episode, and not since February with Timmy and Lisa Tardif. And we want to see, that it's not just guys that collect toys, you know?
Yeah, definitely. I think it's a more male-dominated area, but for sure, that got me.
It is, and it always, the whole comic and collectible thing always has been male-dominated. But, in the last, 10 years or so, I mean, you go to Comic-Con, it's at least a 60-40 male to female now, where it used to be like a 90-10, back in the 80s.
Definitely. There were some, we went this past summer to Comic-Con, and it was like amazing, some of the costumes, and especially the women. They're embracing all the new superheroes that have come to light and whatnot.
And that's even another thing. I mean, even beyond the toy collecting, when you look at the superheroes, which obviously is a huge subculture of toy collecting, you see a lot more female superheroes now. We always had the Fantastic Four, She-Hulk, they're kind of secondary. Well, Wonder Woman was the one big one. I always loved Dazzler. In the early 80s. She was a victim of timing. She was a disco superhero that came out right at the tail end of disco, But if you look out there nowadays, I mean, Thor's a woman. There's women everywhere as superheroes as well as being into it. Let me ask, what got you started in collecting toys in general, or collecting dolls?
My whole life I've been really, really into Halloween and into horror.
Okay.
And I can remember being like 9 or 10 and just asking my mom to go to Blockbuster and bring me home a horror movie. And she's so sweet, she didn't know. So she just grabbed one.
Good, Friday the 13th, honey.
So I'm watching Nightmare on Elm Street and Friday. Yeah, it was, so I've just at a very early age been addicted to it. And it started with buying Halloween decorations. I've always been kind of a go big or go home person, so I'm not really a pumpkin on the porch girl. I'm more of a giant beheaded bride animatronic.
See, I'm the dead opposite. I don't decorate a lot, but I do put in. I try to do these incredibly detailed pumpkins. I'll do like the Death Star or something. I'll carve them up like really detailed. But.
Those are awesome. I've never really been into carving pumpkins, but I love super scary, gory, crazy things. Yeah. So I have an entire attic full of just ridiculous things.
We know. Absolutely, yes.
And so from there, I just sort of, I don't know, I started collecting horror toys, and then it inevitably ended up going to the dolls because I just sort of saw them initially as like a prop. because they're spooky.
Sure.
And but I've
So
really
it's a Halloween like decoration props.
yeah, but I've really grown attached to them because I kind of see them as a toy that was once obviously owned by a child, and probably that child is long since dead because they're very, very old. And
Almost
I
looks
like the
they
idea
might have
of,
killed the child. Some of them.
I like the idea of giving them a new home rather than being discarded.
You know, I got to start out with these, and of course we have the Boglins. I don't actually. You were showing me how the eyes turn. I don't even know how to do it.
You're actually doing it right
Am I
now.
doing
There's
it?
a little
Okay.
plastic flap in there, and they look around and they're awesome and
turn
they're made.
back and forth.
And a lot of these guys didn't really make it because of the material they're made out of. They melted, they
Well,
they
yeah,
dry
that makes
out.
sense now that you say it.
So they came from 1987. I
87
believe.
by Mattel, yes.
Yeah, and they were super popular. When I was growing up, I
were
wasn't
very cool.
a huge Barbie girl. I liked like
Well,
my
yeah,
Pet
obviously.
Monster. I liked Boglins and
Yeah.
Mad Balls, like the the
Well,
vintage
that's what
Mad
I was
Balls.
just gonna say. They remind me of like Mad Balls or Breath Blasters. If you remember Breath Blasters.
Absolutely. I just always like the weird stuff. So.
And these definitely have it. I mean, these are.
Look at this face. How can you
weird,
not
but
love
they're
it?
Cool. They're almost. It reminds me almost like a French bulldog in a monster form.
Exactly.
They are very, very cool.
Yeah, these are two of my favorite toys, just because I had them as a kid, and
Oh, so these were yours?
No, these
okay.
are ones I repurchased as an
Repurchased,
adult
got it.
because when you're a kid, you don't really take as good.
It's true. Yeah, I wish there was some. We were talking a few minutes ago about Frank Sarzia that used to own the Toy Museum, and what blows me away sometimes is he's putting up a lot of his collectibles online, and he'll be like, "This was in my room as a child." He saved everything.
I am a firm believer, though, that toys are meant to be played with, so I don't have a ton of them in boxes because I like to display them. I like to, when I was a kid, I liked to play with them. So.
A lot of collectors want the stuff pristine in the box, perfect. I don't like that so much myself, unless it's like a clear opening. I don't mind, but I want it to display nicely.
Yeah.
I almost like them looser.
Absolutely, and the box it's too uniform. It's too museum-like. You can really get a feel.
Exactly.
Okay, so I brought just a couple of my dolls. I think I have upwards of 30, 35 of them or so in my room. These are vintage composite style dolls.
Yes.
You can see by the cracking of the plastic.
Yeah, a lot of them. These actually are not bad. A lot of them I've seen cracks, like almost looks like a jigsaw puzzle across the head. They're so bad.
And to be perfectly honest, I find that the cracking gives them so much more character. It just adds a little definition,
It gives the age,
a little
and
depth.
Yeah, they look great.
So they're probably dated from between the 30s, maybe the early 40s. A lot of these dolls back then didn't have markings on them though, so it was really hard to identify.
Yeah, it's real hard to tell the company or who made them. Exactly. I honestly thought a lot of these were more turn of the century than they were 30s and 40s, so you're definitely more informed on these than I am.
I'm basing it just on pictures that I've looked up online and what has been on, but I mean, I don't think I have anything quite that early, but I mean, it's hard to say,
It's amazing what they did even with some of those. I mean, a lot of these are just kind of, not just these, but in general, this kind of line was generally a basic doll. And that's all it was. It didn't do anything. But then I've seen some that were like pre-1900 that literally had like little records inside to make them talk and stuff. I'm like, I remember seeing that once on Antiques Roadshow, I believe it was. I'm not 100% on that, but I think it was. And they actually had to clean this thing out or something, whoever it was. But they had a little tiny record in there, and the doll would, I don't know if it talked or it cried, but whatever it did, it was extremely rare doll, and it would have been perfect for this episode because it was the creepiest thing you ever heard.
Now you're just giving me a mission to go find one.
There you go. And we've talked about it before that these dolls specifically. Now, when I was a kid, it's amazing that I've become a toy collector because as a child, I could not have dolls specifically, but any toy that had a face, I couldn't have them in my room. Little action figures, the 3 3/4-inch Star Wars, whatever. But like a big full-size doll, because we've talked about this. I was about probably 3 or 4 years old, maybe 5, and my babysitter made me watch the movie The Dolls, where all the dolls come to life and kill everybody.
So good.
So, here I was, a freshman in college, still looking over at my roommate's stuffed animal that he had going, I can't sleep with this thing in the room, and finally got beyond that.
Great movie.
Yeah,
it's a quintessential classic 80s horror. That's fabulous.
Yeah, I didn't love it, but I've never seen it again. One time was enough at that age.
Awesome.
I don't know. But this guy was kind of interesting. You brought him out. I don't know if I'm going to get him to work. You showed me him. But he's supposed to crawl, but he gets hooked on his clothes a little. We'll try in a minute. But I even love how he's winding. It's not even like an old I mean, not even like a newfangled key to turn. It's almost like just a wire.
Yeah, I found him at Todd's farm, and sometimes
Okay.
I will buy something strictly for the creep value, and this doll is a total creep.
It is totally creepy.
When he walks, and it
I wanna see if
quite
I can get him to
often
walk.
happens on its own because he gets caught. And
So
then
he's basically
sometimes
possessed. He just decides I'm going to walk. No,
I don't like to think he's
I know,
possessed,
I
but
know.
I'll tell you, I'll be in the room and I'll just hear him, zzz, and I'm like,
All of a
oh,
sudden
it
he
just
starts
it's like he
moving.
gets unattached from his.
You know, now that I think about it, I wish I'd known you at the time. I didn't. This is about probably 3 years ago. I had picked up what has now become known as the haunted Teddy Ruxpin out at Todd Farm. And I brought him home. He didn't work. He was just kind of, I think I paid like $2 for him. I was like, oh, Teddy Ruxpin, let me bring him home. Well, as soon as we brought him home, starting that night, we started hearing talking at night after we went to bed. Every night. All the kids heard it. I heard it. And it was like, what's going on? And we kept hearing walking across the living room. And I would come. This doll was originally in my room and then went down to the bedroom to the basement as I was getting ready to sell it. But I would literally, I'm not even joking. This is why it left my room. I would put it in one place and I would wake up and it would be on the other side of the room. And it was like, dude, this thing's got to go. It was like,
bye.
But I used it as almost as a marketing gimmick. I think it kind of backfired. It's funny because I put it on eBay as haunted Teddy Ruxpin and actually told the stories that I'm telling now. And it was one of the weirdest sales ever because I think I had something like 40 watchers.
Wow.
People were looking at, I started it at like $10 or whatever it was, maybe $15. And I had like 40 watchers, so I'm thinking this thing is gonna sell. And then it finally sold for the opening bid. One person bid on it out of the 40. I think it got a lot of interest because of the scare factor, but then they were afraid to pull the trigger. And they were probably smart because there's something was hooked up to that doll. I don't know what it was, but
I will say, I mean, of all the dolls and all the toys that I've gotten over the years, I've never felt anything negative. I never
have either. That was the only one, and it left fast.
Yeah, they're definitely overwhelming to some people when you go in there and there's so many things just staring at you.
Well, some people think it's just creepy, any toys, but for some reason they seem to think it more about dolls a lot of the time. And just in general, it doesn't have to have a creepy association to it. It's just dolls.
Just
creepy.
don't like
I don't know
dolls.
why.
Yeah, I definitely have had people who just outright refuse to go up in my room.
I've seen comments on Facebook here and there, saying that. So, anyway, but these are all really cool. Now, you did bring in one other doll that is not creepy, but it is super cool for 2 reasons, and I want you to bring that up. Let's take a look at it. We tucked it aside so no one would see it.
So aside from my horror items and scary items that I find, I do collect vintage toys, and I was able to find this super awesome Pee-wee
And that's the Pee-wee
ventriloquist
pull
doll.
string.
Yes.
He is the ventriloquist. When I saw the string for a minute, I thought he was the pull string. Okay.
So he doesn't talk, but he opens his mouth.
Yes. And I had the same one recently. I just actually resold it, but the mouth really stuck bad on it. Does that do that?
No, he's pretty good. I mean, well, I guess it does.
So he
but
does. Yeah,
I'm
that's
gonna
what I'm
give it
saying.
back.
You pull it and he likes to stick open. I was told it was pretty common that it's not even a age thing. They kind of were like that when they were made.
I didn't
from what
even
hear.
realize it was a ventriloquist when we were talking about it. I thought it would have originally talked because it kind of, the string sort of stops.
And that's
but no,
what
it's
I
just,
do still have home. I have the pull string one, which I've kept, and I was debating, do I want the pull string or the ventriloquist when I picked that up? I didn't really want both, so I ended up keeping that. But the part about this that's really cool, Pee-wee is always cool. I love Pee-wee. He's always a big pop culture giant. But let's take a look at the hand of this particular Pee-wee.
Yeah, so this past summer at Comic-Con, I met Paul Rubens, and he actually autographed it for me, and it was so cool to meet him. It was like meeting somebody who you've been friends with for years, and you're finally meeting them. So, and I've met quite a few celebrities at this point, and I don't know, I couldn't keep it together with him. I was so, I've grown up with him, you know? So
he's become so iconic. It's funny, he had those years where he had his, fall from grace, and he was just kind of gone for a while. But he would pop up now and again. He was in Batman Returns, and he was in Mystery Man, which I love, with Ben Stiller, as the spleen.
He was actually in Mac and Me too. He was the voice of the robot, which I had no idea. I thought it was actually somebody trying to do his voice, and then I found out just recently it was really him, and that was exciting.
When we did the Star Wars episode, we didn't get to this particular autograph, I don't think, if I remember correctly, but he actually voiced a robot in one of the Star Wars movies,
No way.
which I had never known before.
He was, is it Locke in Nightmare Before Christmas? He was one of the little kids.
I didn't realize that either, okay. But, I was starting to say that his kind of fall from grace, it's funny because Paul Rubin was so associated with Pee-wee Herman. You know, that if that hadn't been the case, it might not have been as big a deal as it was to kind of push him aside. Because, you know, you look at any other person, if, you know, Burt Reynolds, who just died recently, played Bandit. When he went on a TV show, he was Burt Reynolds, the guy who played Bandit. When Pee Wee went on a show, Letterman or Leno or whatever it was, he went on as Pee Wee Herman. When they did Pee Wee's Big Adventure, it was Pee Wee Herman in Pee Wee's Big Adventure. It was never Paul Reubens as Pee Wee Herman.
And it was really unfortunate because in comparison to today's scandals, what happened, what that was.
And a lot of them just blow over now.
Yeah, it would have been no thing. So it's a shame that that even showed up in his career.
Yeah, it did. And it
there
really
were,
just
he had a
kinda
lot of supporters, though.
Set him back for a while. He did. He always has, yeah. It definitely impacted his career negatively for a while, but he's made the comeback. He's really big.
He was really great in Blow, too, if you ever saw that movie with Johnny Depp, and he played the dealer.
He is actually, you know, because he's even coming back now, he's so associated, Paul Reubens, as Pee Wee. But the truth is, he's actually a very good actor. He's done a lot of other roles. Like we were talking earlier about, he was in Gotham. But yeah, thanks for coming in, and
thanks for having me. I really appreciate it.
Absolutely.
Happy Halloween.
Yes, you too. And we'll see everybody again next month here on Toy Talk.